Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we're tearing up and tearing out our hair trying to pronounce the name of this dang Zelda game. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I'm joined, as I'm always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including some updates on news out of the Nintendo Direct last week. And then on Thursday, we're going to be giving Nintendo games James Bond subtitles. But Mark, in the meantime, how's it going?
It's going great. Patrick, longtime listeners, and you, of course, of this show, know how much I love Murder, She Wrote.
Yes.
The 1980s, 1990s, murder, mystery, whodunit TV series starring Angela Lansbury as Jessica Fletcher.
Jessica Fletcher.
And last year, or I think it was last year, a friend of the show and previous guest of the show, Ryan Mogi, who also really likes Murder, She Wrote, informed me that Murder, She Wrote, the entire series, is on Peacock. And so previously,
you were having a hard time hunting it down, right? That
right,
it was available on various services, but only for a little.
And only like 5 seasons were there for streaming on like Amazon for a while. But
I love these shows that are so long and only parts of them are streaming places. This was my experience with Columbo, whereas like the first 8 seasons or whatever were on Amazon Prime, and now they're not anymore. And
right. Yeah. So I did a rewatch that concluded earlier this year or last year. I can't remember now, actually, of all 12 seasons.
Yes.
Plus the 3 TV movies that were made. And I have since started from the beginning.
Wow.
And going through them. But this time, Patrick, in about season 5, Angela Lansbury for a brief time was like, I don't know if I want to do 22, 23 of these a year.
Understandable.
So we're going to do these kind of stories where she has the opening and the closing scene, or at least an opening scene, where she's like, oh, here's, one of the books that I wrote, and I'm going to tell you the story.
Oh.
And my first watch always skipped them.
Yeah.
Was just nope, not doing it.
Yeah, Fletcher.
Bill Maher, no thanks.
Excuse me?
Yeah, Bill Maher is in one of them. I was like,
wow.
Not today, Satan.
Wow.
But this time,
Wait, he's the detective?
No, he's not a detective. He's just a hapless person in the story, because not all of them involve detectives.
Okay, all right.
But this time, I'm forcing myself to watch them.
Yeah.
Because Murder, She Wrote, they're not making more of it, so it's a precious resource.
That's right.
So
how dare you
exactly
reject what
so
is given to you?
I feel like I have to watch all of it, but it's not fun. It's definitely like eating my vegetables.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you have to go through that, Mark.
It's tough, but also worth it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As someone whose love of Murder, She Wrote burns bright.
Right. Well, what you got to do is you also then have to watch all of Magnum PI because of that one crossover episode.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. That's
the real.
That is a piece of Murder, She Wrote that I've never seen. I've seen the episode of Murder, She Wrote where Magnum PI, that part
where
of the
Magnum
crossover.
Is there. Yeah, you have to go to Magnum PI to watch her on that show.
Ooh, I hope that's streaming somewhere. I'm going to end up buying the entire series on Blu-ray so I can watch that one episode.
Ooh, I wonder, because previous guest on the show and person who recommended looking on Peacock for these episodes, Ryan Mogi, has the entire DVD collection of Murder, She Wrote, and I know she has seen the Magnum PI episode that she is on, so maybe just ask Ryan.
Oh yeah, that's a great point.
She can
point me in the right direction.
For sure. Here's another thing that you can be pointing in the right direction towards. My copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. Would you like to borrow it? You certainly can. Get on the list to borrow it. All you gotta do is email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. Give us a mailing address so we can send you my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. You play it for as long as you want. You send it back. Oops, maybe there's a copy of Untitled Goose Game in there. I said oops, but I regretted it immediately because it's not a mistake. It's just a thing that happens. Either way, you don't pay for postage at all. I pay for postage at all. and it's a perfect borrowing program.
Here's another thing you can do is you can leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere that you get your podcast. We appreciate it so much. Patrick and I love reading your reviews. It helps people find the show, so it's a great way to grow the Nintendo Cartridge Society. We appreciate it so much when you leave us a 5-star review. If you leave us a 5-star review on the US Apple Podcast Store, we can see it and we'll give you a shout out on the show. But if you leave us a review anywhere else, we can't see it, but we still want to acknowledge it. So
and it's not that we refuse to see it; it's that we cannot see it.
Well, a little from column A, a little from column B.
We're not going to do the legwork, okay?
But your review is still really important to us. So send us an email, hit us up on Twitter, let us know so we can acknowledge you on the show. And thank you so much to everybody who has left us a 5-star review in the past.
Also, you can let us know in our Discord. What's that? You're not a member of our Discord yet? You should get in there. People are having a great time. They're partying up in Splatoon 3. They are talking about everything that's going on in Nintendo. Was a totally fun, chill place to talk about the Direct as it was happening immediately afterwards. A bunch of fun, funny, interesting people talking about Nintendo. So if you want to get in our Discord, send us an email, hit us up on Twitter. We will let you in. All right, Mark, are you ready to discuss what we've been playing this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Mark, and of course I know partying up to play Splatoon 3 with people in our Discord because I've done it. Of course I know it. It's me. It's me. I've been playing Splatoon 3. Mark, I've been loving it. Have you finally gotten a chance to get into Splatoon 3?
Yes, I finally started Splatoon 3. And
it's been out for a week.
I remain not great at Turf War, although I'm kind of like figuring it out in a way. I never had strategy before. I was never like I was always a little like kamikaze, where I was just well, I'm just gonna like charge into battle and I'm gonna try to hope for the best. And that's not a winning strategy.
So winning strategy, stick together.
Yes, stick together, and I hang back. So instead of trying to like make forward progress, because here's the thing, I'm not all that great at aiming. So I'm not all that great at like splatting the enemy, which is really important if you're on the front lines. So I'm more of like a backbench player, I've determined.
Right.
And it's working out okay for me.
That's good. Do you remind me, are you playing with the tilt aiming or just the dual sticks?
I'm playing with the dual sticks. I wish, and so somebody tell me if this exists out there, I wish there was a way that you could do a little bit of both, but it seems like it's like
would be the best.
But it seems like it's one or the other. You're either like fully committed to motion controls or you're committed to dual sticks. Because what I wish is that, I could use the dual sticks and just do minor corrections.
Right, the little fine-tuned
with
aiming,
that a lot of like first-person shooters and other games
like
implement.
the Zelda games do, like with a bow and arrow, that like you are basically controlling the whole thing with sticks, but if you want to just like scooch it just a little bit, you can just tilt
exactly.
the thing.
How do you play?
I play with the motion controls.
Oh, okay.
But like every time I start a Splatoon game, I'm like, oh, I should do like the dual stick and play it like someone is actually like playing an online shooter, because in most other contexts you don't have a choice, right? Like that's just what you got to do. But it never feels right to me. I'm always like, no, I got to go back to the motion controls, and it takes maybe like an hour of like messing around with it to get back into the headspace where I can like accurately or like reliably aim and shoot and stuff. But then after that, it's all gravy. So that's where I am right now. I do have a harder time doing that on handheld, when I'm playing in handheld, just because like then the screen moves too.
Right.
But yeah, with the controller, like that's the way for me.
So I have been playing a little bit of like Turf War, but most of my time I've been putting into Salmon Run. And can I tell you how glad I am that Salmon Run is available 24/7?
Yeah,
because I love Salmon Run so much. I think it is so much fun.
Salmon Run is great.
And I love that I don't now have to worry about like, well, I need to check to see if Salmon Run is available, and then I can boot up Splatoon 2, or I'm going to boot up Splatoon 2, play a couple turf battles, see that Salmon Run is, closed, and then just be like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm glad that you could just play PvE anytime you want.
It's such a weird restriction that was on it to begin with, that like I get it, it's all part of like there being like a real sense of it being a live service and like something, but like it's artificial scarcity. Like there's no reason for it or point to it. It's great to be able to just access it all the time.
I also feel like there are new variations in Salmon Run that weren't there, and I can't say this with 100% certainty, as we saw with some of the turf war battlefields that they announced, and it was like, are these new? And I thought they were, but they ended up just being from the first game. But there are some that I don't remember experiencing, so they're new to me anyways. Like one where there's all these like boxes are falling from the sky, and then like a mothership will come and hoover up the eggs that you've gathered and stuff. Like it's it just feels like there's like lots of variations. And I think you experienced this because you were talking about it in the Discord in the beginning. When I first started playing Salmon Run, I was like, this is so easy. Did I get really good at Salmon Run? But no, it scales really quickly.
Scales really quick, and if you're playing with people who are of higher level, it just like kicks you into that higher level, which I did with some people from the Discord, and I had a great time. But there was definitely times where we were like, being swarmed.
I also think it's so funny, like some of the weapon combinations that they throw out there, because it's like I'm terrible at like 3 of these 4 weapons, so I just pray that I get the one that I'm worse at, like in the first round.
Right, because you can always muddle through the first round.
Right.
Yeah. I also that is another thing actually that I like is the that it just serves you up a weapon and you just like are forced to use it. Because I don't, like you, I'm not super good at the game, but I'm like a good team player, right? So like I'm always going to be able to muddle through with whatever weapon I'm given, in a way that I wouldn't be able to in like a turf war, right?
Totally. And
if I start a turf war with a weapon I don't know how to use, like it's game over for me. I'm done.
I just imagine my little, like octo person up there on the top of one of the towers with like this sniper rifle that I don't know how to use, being swarmed by all these salmonids, and just it's a very funny mental image to me.
You're playing as an octoling?
I am, yes.
I'm an inkling. I'm a little squid. And I get if you hadn't played Octo Expansion, that's like, now's your chance to play as an octoling. But Mark, I already did that. I'm fine being a squid kid.
Well, I think it's great that I think it's fitting that you are a squid kid and I'm an octo person. It just shows that
peace is achievable
exactly.
within our lifetimes. Have you started the single player campaign?
No, not at all yet.
Okay. When you get into it, if you get into it and get past when you get to the turn, I just want to know when you get to the turn.
Oh, that's right. You talked about this last week.
I want to talk about the turn.
Yeah, I am interested in playing it. Actually, today while I was working in the background, I had this music playlist that somebody had made of Splatoon 3 music from one of the, or like based around one of the areas in the single player that was very intriguing to me. So I don't know what this turn is that you're talking about, but I'm excited to get into it. And can I just say, the music of Splatoon as a series has been so good, and Splatoon 3 has not let me down in that regard.
Carries that torch forward for sure.
I also really like help me out with the name of the city that you're in. But
sure, Ink Town.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah,
Splatsville.
Yes.
It might be Splatsville.
Yeah. I like that even though there's not a ton to explore, I like that it's bigger than the previous city.
It's got those things off to the side.
And I like that it has a verticality.
Yeah.
I think it's just like
cool.
It's been fun to just kind of like explore. Again, it's not like huge, it's not like an open world or anything, but it just feels like it's more rewarding to look around than the earlier games.
I also, when I'm not playing Splatoon, I forget what the like sort of memeing culture is like in Splatoon, because everyone has these little banners. And Mark, how are people drawing these things? How are people like? I know there are some people with like artistic skill that are like really spending time using like a capacitative stylist to actually like draw these things.
I feel like in Splatoon 2, and I never did it myself, so I might be getting this wrong, but I feel like there's a website you could use to like digitize images and then somehow
get them there.
Yeah.
If that exists for this, someone please let us know, because I would like to not have to draw things, because I'm very bad at it. But like people are just great, and like the weirdest the weirdest stuff appears on there.
It's so funny. I completely agree that I kind of forgot about this aspect of it. But just walking around and it's just been enjoyable to check out people's profiles and then like um whatever it's like, it's not booyah, but like like thumbs up the their artwork, and then see it like showing up on the walls and everything.
I also all very rewarding.
I also like, since they're getting ready for a Splatfest, that as you're walking around the city now, like boxes and like different things are appearing, like they're getting
right,
like they are actually setting up a festival. And I love that you can exit out of the little hourly updates now and just have it be up in the corner instead of having to watch it.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great reminder that the Splatfest is this weekend. That's another like aspect of the like memeing culture that I think is really fun and funny. That like people buy into whatever their team is, and they buy into it hard and like post about it like it matters when like it obviously doesn't, but like just a fun thing to be like, I'm team food or whatever.
Right. Yeah, we
grub.
Last week I was asking you beforehand, before the game released, we were kind of feeling like, oh, is this just like more of Splatoon? And you said yes, but that's not a bad thing. And now that I'm playing it, I feel the same exact way. Like someone in the Discord, and forgive me, I don't know, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but they were saying in this regard, like, yes, it is, but that's like a good thing, because if they had just released this as an update to Splatoon 2, it may not have been enough to get me to go in and like really play it a ton. And I feel the same exact way, where it's like, as a discrete release, it feels it's more exciting. Like I'm excited for Splatoon to be back in that way.
Mark, what else have you been playing this week?
I was feeling a little nostalgic. We had just done our Mario Kart 8 Deluxe track rankings, but it's been so long since I've gone back to Mario Kart 64, and I was just thinking of some of the tracks in that game that haven't been remastered or haven't been in other releases. So I was going back and playing Mario Kart 64, and it was fun to do. It's interesting to see how well that game holds up, I think. And I think part of it is that they do this really cool trick with the characters themselves, that they're sprites and not actually like 3D models. So the game actually looks decent. Like, not amazing, but it looks okay.
Now, this is
a no butt rating.
This is a no butt rating.
Yeah, I think it actually looks pretty good.
All right, it reads as kind of butt to me, but
well, this might be my Wave Ray 64 then,
okay,
where I can't see the butt.
We respect each other's opinions,
yeah,
even if we vehemently disagree.
But like the music is great. I don't know. It's so interesting to go back to like how the carts control.
Yeah.
Because there was just like the one stick, so there was no like there's no real drifting like we think of it today. It's just like it has been very fun to go back to. I'm enjoying playing some Mario Kart 64. How about you?
I've not been playing Mario Kart 64, but I have been playing The Legend of Zelda 2. Or Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. I had picked this up on my Zelda Game & Watch maybe like a month or two ago. And just over the weekend, I was like, no, you know what? I want to play this on my Switch. Something that's a little bit more like, just real, I guess. That I don't have to play it when I'm like sitting at my desk. I can play it anywhere. And I love the game. I think it's a wonderful little piece of Zelda history. But I came up with three easy fixes that could be made to this game to wholly modernize it and make it playable and good for everyone. Mark, would you like to hear the three suggestions I have?
Yeah, I'd love
for
to.
Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Number 1, put in the ability to fast travel to any town or temple you've previously visited. So if you die in a temple, if you get a game over in the temple, you just start the game, you continue, and then like warp right to that temple right away. You don't have to worry about like doing that all again. Okay, so that's number 1.
That's a great idea.
Fast travel. Number 2, change number 2. Experience points carry over between continues and play sessions. So like if you are building up a bunch of experience points and you get killed off or you have to go away or whatever, the game resets your experience points. So you have to like re-earn them to level up. Stupid. I don't want that. Keep your experience points between play sessions.
Yeah, woof.
And then number 3, and this is a big one, maps for the dungeons. that fill in like Metroid, right? So as you are experiencing them, you can see where you're going, where you've been. It'll mark stuff on the map. It's like, oops, here's a little.
Because there's no maps in Zelda 2.
No maps in Zelda 2.
Oh.
No maps in Zelda 2 at all, which means that a lot of those later dungeons are like impenetrable without like having a map pulled up online or whatever. If those are all in game, it would change it completely.
Yeah, I think those are such great suggestions.
This is just what Zelda 2 needs. It's a good game. Otherwise, I will continue to insist. All right, Mark, that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
So before we get into what is releasing this week, let's talk about something that happened last week. 3 new games came to the Sega Genesis Switch Online. Alicia Dragoon, Beyond Oasis, and Earthworm Jim.
And I think at this point that brings the total game total up to like 27 or 32 or something like that. There are a lot of games on this thing.
Yeah, and as we discovered last holiday, the Sega Genesis has some awesome games on it. Beyond Oasis is the one that stands out to me.
Same.
Because I know of it as like Sega Zelda like there aren't very many Zelda like games on the Sega Genesis, but Beyond Oasis is supposed to be one of them, and it's supposed to be pretty good.
I will happily check that out. I did turn on Earthworm Jim for a little bit. That doesn't really hold up. Also, it reminded me that Earthworm Jim 2 is on the Super NES collection. Do you remember that?
Oh, right.
So strangely, you can play Earthworm Jim 1 on the Genesis, Earthworm Jim 2 on the Super NES. No one knows why. Also, Mark, I put a little note here because we are in the middle now of the 3rd full week of September. I bet we get an announcement about which of the teased Nintendo 64 games is going to come out and will be out by the end of this week. Could that be James Bond?
Maybe.
GoldenEye 007? Maybe.
Because remind me what they are. It's Pilot Wings, Mario Party 2.
And those are the games that are supposed to come out in 2022. The other ones, Mario Party 3, 1080 Snowboarding, Excitebike 64, those are all 2023 games.
Right. And then they were like, hey, GoldenEye, but they didn't even put a date or a time frame on it. And so if nothing releases this month,
right,
then, well, there's basically, either
they haven't missed a month yet.
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
So if just those 3 games come out through the course of this year, we got September, October, November, December. That's 4 months that need to be accounted for. So I'm guessing that GoldenEye will be either this month or one of the other 3. I'm guessing GoldenEye is this year.
Yeah, because it does. I mean, maybe the fact that there was a Nintendo Direct, they were like, that's good enough. No Nintendo 64 games this month. But otherwise, it has to fit in somewhere.
So I'm just saying, let's be on the lookout for that announcement.
Well, yesterday, September 19th, Return to Monkey Island was released, and it was released on the Switch eShop. Reviews for this is a good week for games that have reviewed well, because Return to Monkey Island released and getting really good reviews. Looks like a lot of fun. Maybe the first Monkey Island. I liked Thimbleweed Park, the previous Ron Gilbert game that was on Switch. Played that way back in 2017, I think. So maybe this will be the first Monkey Island game I play. They're supposed to be, but I don't know. So that came out yesterday. On Thursday, the Diofield Chronicle is released. This is a Square Enix game. It's a strategy RPG.
That looks like sort of a real-time Fire Emblem.
Yeah, kind of like almost like MOBA like combat, where you are, like giving orders to your troops, but the action is happening in real time, and it's not grid based.
Right.
They can kind of run freely on the field. So looks kind of cool. Again, reviewing really well. And then on Friday, September 23rd, Shovel Knight Dig.
This one
is out as
well.
On me.
I mean, I'm never gonna say no to a Shovel Knight game. So I will absolutely be picking this up. Even though I'm not quite sure I understand what the gimmick of it is. I'm still just gonna trust the team over at Yacht Club and pick it up.
Yeah, if nothing else, it feels like it'll have an amazing soundtrack. So
I mean, they always do. So yeah, Mark, that's great. We've got some like fun games to check out this week.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, those are the new releases. Let's close this segment out. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or a group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of our show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I'll talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, of course, you and I had to talk about the Phantom of the Opera, which is coming off Broadway.
After 35 years.
After 35
it's
years.
going to have its 35th anniversary in
That's right.
January, and then in February, it'll close on Broadway.
And this also marks the first time since like 1978 that an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical hasn't been on Broadway.
That's so crazy.
So, but between Cats and Phantom, he's just cornered that market. So let's talk about Phantom of the Opera. Mark, have you ever seen Phantom, a production of Phantom?
Yes, I have. I have seen it. I saw it on Broadway at the Majestic Theater. Yeah, many years ago at this point. But yes, I've always really liked the Phantom of the Opera. I think, like, is it bombastic? Is it like over the top? Is it kind of silly? Like,
it's a Broadway musical.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
what are we talking about?
It is all those things, but it is. I think it's great. I think it is.
It's really good.
I think it's a really like fun show. I think it's a really good show to see. Yeah, I like the Phantom of the Opera a lot. How about you? Have you seen it?
I've never seen a professional production. I've seen like college and maybe just college production.
What did they do for the chandelier? Because the chandelier is such like a big.
Oh no,
like,
that's a
part of
lie.
it.
I've totally seen a touring production of it. I've seen a professional, yes, because I've absolutely seen you just fake it. You know, it's just like the barricades in Les Mis.
Sure, I mean
you have something, and like, is it a giant stage size set piece that rotates? No, but like it's there.
Well, I just wonder because like the kind of like overture to the show
right
is all
lot 665.
You're just like sitting there, and if there's not a chandelier like rising into the air,
right,
like what do you do? But I guess like in New York overture, you just sit there,
right, you just sit there and like listen to the music.
Yeah.
No, it's I love Phantom. I've never been a part of a production of Phantom of the Opera, but I have been in like choirs that have done like Phantom of the Opera medleys, and I'm sure that we've done like an arrangement of those in like an orchestra I was in at some point, and the music in Phantom rules. Like that, especially by like Andrew Lloyd Webber standards, they're all like hooky earworms. Like the songs are just great,
and the lyrics are not bad, which you can say for very few Andrew Lloyd Webber shows. I feel like a lot of times Andrew Lloyd Webber's music, like itself, is generally pretty good, but sometimes the lyricists that he gets, they just do not collaborate well or something.
Yeah,
it's kind of a mess. Like I feel like Sunset Boulevard is a good example of that, where
totally.
Some of the music is really good, but most of it is like the lyrics are really bad.
Well, I also feel like Phantom does a pretty good job of avoiding the sort of like pitfalls of like the 80s and 70s like avant-garde / music theater like trends, where like even something like JCS like starts to sound crazy and psychedelic after a little bit, and Cats obviously. All right, we've been cut off. We can't talk about.
We blew through that 433. Sometimes we have to stretch a little bit, but there's a lot
like
more we could have said about
Phantom. Kept going about Phantom. Yeah, it's true. Today we were accompanied by the Berliner Philharmoniker. All right, Mark, let's get into the news.
Kind of hard to believe it was only 1 week ago that we had a full-blown Nintendo Direct. But we now have some more details about some of the announcements made during the presentation, including Theatrhythm, for you,
No,
Patrick.
hold on, but you you gotta hold your ground here, buddy.
You're right. Theatrhythm, and it shall forever be Theatrhythm.
And I will say Theatrhythm. Okay, that's not for you
Okay.
to. You don't need to offer me that olive.
All right,
branch.
that's fine. I agree to those terms. Theatrhythm, final bar line. The next entry in the Square Enix rhythm game series was announced for Switch, and the trailer at the time promised DLC from games such as like the Saga series, Nier, Octopath Traveler, and Live Alive. But some like heavy hitters were kind of missing, like Chrono Trigger or Chrono Cross.
Right.
But the eShop listing of the game includes even more series that will come into the DLC, including there will be 2 Chrono packs that include music from Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, plus The World Ends With You, the Mana series, Xenogears, and others that have yet to be revealed. So
Secret of Evermore when?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
This is incredible. What a great like a treasure trove of Square Enix. Here's my only disappointment. If we were gonna get Dragon Quest music,
right,
it would have been in this announcement.
And
right?
I'm guessing, and somebody keep me honest, Patrick, or a listener keep me honest, but these are all Square series, I think. I don't think there's any Enix in here.
Sure, I mean it's all Square Enix now,
right? But they seem to be drawing like a line.
There's
between
like a little artificial
for this series. Also, the name Theatrhythm Final Bar Line kind of has that Super Smash Brothers Ultimate-esque thing to it, where you're like, are they pulling out all the stops because this is the last one?
This is the one that they're going to consider the platform from here on out.
That's
this
right.
Is the Theatrhythm. So it's here's my worry, Mark. I'm excited about all of these additional tracks. I don't want to have to buy individual packs. I wish there was just here's $20 extra.
Oh, there is.
And I can just get it all?
I think there is. I think there's a version of the game that you can buy even on the eShop that's just like,
give me everything.
Give me everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, $90 or something like that, but you can get all the download packs.
Boy, that's a lot of money.
I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe it's cheaper. Maybe it's cheaper than the regular version. I don't know.
I mean,
who am I to say?
I'm expecting it to be a lot of money. But like, and probably most of what I want is in the main game anyway, right? And also, like, what do I get out of having like music from Saga or Nier? Like, that doesn't really mean anything to me. But Octopath, Live Alive, World Ends With You, Chronos Trigger and Cross, the Mana series, like that all does mean stuff to me. Xenogears, I don't care. So maybe picking and choosing will be better for me on this.
Yeah, I haven't played any of these games, but for some reason having all of these series in here is really exciting to me.
Yeah, well, and like the music from Square Enix games like ends up becoming the sort of like background music to our lives, as like we just want some music that we can put on that's like vaguely familiar, but like can sort of ignore while working or studying or whatever. Man, I put on that that Square Enix like lo-fi record that's on Apple Music and Spotify. I put that thing on all the time. It's so good.
Yeah, it is crazy looking back on it how much those soundtracks and how much I guess video game music in general is like the soundtrack of my life.
Yeah,
like what I listen to so much nowadays. Tales of Symphonia Remastered was announced during the last Direct, and last week so this is a minor debug, I said that the remaster was already released on other platforms and is now just coming to Switch, but that's not true. So the original game, not a remastered version, but just like the original game, is available on Steam, and a collection including the sequel that was made for Wii was released on PlayStation 3. But this remaster is something that's completely new and not currently available. So you cannot play, you can't get Tales of Symphonia Remastered on PlayStation 4 or anything currently like I thought you could.
Sure. And that makes sense if it was a PlayStation 3 game, as those are not really playable anywhere.
Right. And the one that was on PlayStation 3, is not like remastered or anything like that. And also, Patrick, last week you asked if the in-game character design matches the original. And so I went back and compared gameplay of the GameCube release to the reveal trailer, and I'd say it's not far off, but they've definitely been reworked.
Okay.
But the kind of like chibi look to it, that is faithful to the original.
Okay.
Which also, I don't know if the reason you brought that up is because it kind of like struck you when you saw it in the trailer.
It did.
But I did have that
reaction.
I did have that reaction as well. But yeah, so it is fairly faithful, but has been reworked. So Tales of Symphonia Remastered is also releasing on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. And sounds like it'll be 30 frames per second, which has some people disappointed. It ran at 60 frames per second on the GameCube for comparison.
What's up with the frame rate drop here?
I don't know. Maybe it's because it's going... So on Switch anyways, it's going to run at 1080p in docked mode and then like 720p in handheld. So maybe they are locking the frame rate at 30 for it to... But how can a GameCube game not
run at what it was running
I don't
know. Yeah, I mean, that's the confusing part to me. I mean, I guess ultimately we're talking about a turn-based RPG, right? So like it's not going to have a gameplay effect, but like yeah, you'll definitely see the difference. Like you'll feel the difference. Although, you know, I played through like 20 hours of Chrono Cross, which was running at like an abysmal like sometimes like as low as like 8 frames per second. I don't know why it gets so choppy sometimes, but it just does. I wonder if they ever went back and fixed that. I should go check it out because it was really pretty bad for a while, and then I got locked out of it by walking into an area and like the enemies that were supposed to be there weren't.
Yeah, that part is so weird.
And it was so strange. And I don't know if it's because Chrono Cross has so many things where like the story splits and like just you're locked out of a bunch of stuff, and I wonder if I had somehow triggered like a different path or like a different part of the game, so I was like in it when I wasn't supposed to be. But it's possible it's my fault.
But that's so unfortunate though, because it kind of like killed the momentum that you had in that game, and you were like so excited for it. So, yeah.
I mean, I look, back when I owned it on the original PlayStation, I got to, you know, like a halfway point in the game and stopped, gave up, and started over multiple times. So I'm sure I'll just do it again here.
And Nintendo, of course, also revealed the official name of the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild during the Direct, Tears of the Kingdom.
Right.
But since we only saw it written and not spoken, there was some question as to whether it was tears, like tears of sadness, or tears, like tearing up a piece of paper.
So I know that was a question at large. Mark, did you ever have that question? We never once said Tears of the Kingdom.
I always assumed it was tears.
I always assumed tears as well.
Nintendo did provide clarification to Eurogamer that it is tears as in crying. And that got me thinking of like other instances in Zelda games, other like tears in Zelda games. So the ones that I could think of are collecting the Tears of Light in Twilight Princess.
Right.
And then,
which you don't have to do as much of in the HD version.
That's right. Yep. But then there's also the sacred tears in Skyward Sword that you have to gather in, like when you're in the Silent Realm, like those kind of
right. When you're avoiding those like statues that are flying around.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the one that I am kind of like most interested in, given the other subtle connections, or maybe not that subtle connections, to Skyward Sword we've seen so far in the glimpses of footage.
Yeah.
And you know, with the re-release of Skyward Sword last year, HD, ahead of Tears of the Kingdom next year, this all feels of a purpose to me. Like I think that there are going to be. It seems like that Skyward Sword was an inspiration of some sort to Breath of the Wild 2.
And that we all were like primed with the release of Skyward Sword to be remembering these things.
I think so.
I wonder what other stuff we're gonna see from Skyward Sword in this game. Like if they are taking any bits of like the mythology or like philosophy of the game, because there's definitely some like interesting room for that to be expanded in an open world.
And of course, I guess like the big one that ties directly to Breath of the Wild is the Sheikah symbol is an eye with a teardrop.
Yes, and has been since
forever.
Ocarina.
Yeah, exactly.
There's for whatever reason, my first thought about like tears in Zelda, there's like the cutscene from Breath of the Wild that they used in like one of the early story trailers of like Zelda weeping and like just like throwing herself at Link. And that's what I thought of first. So maybe it's just gonna be a really sad game or really stressed out.
It definitely, like, for everything we've seen from the footage and the trailers, all of it feels very dark.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, Breath of the Wild is dark too. Like you're running around a ruined countryside.
Yeah, but I don't feel like the marketing
was
that way at all. I feel like the marketing was this sense of like wonder and discovery, which was very fitting for that game. But the first thing we saw of Tears of the Kingdom all those years in like 2019 was like
going
necromancy,
a deep cave, and like
Zelda falling into a hole. Like the tone of this game, tears, I agree with you, feel apropos of everything we've seen so far.
Which, I mean, kind of fits with, the sort of last time we saw a direct sequel like this in Majora's Mask. Like, that's a much darker game. So, yeah, maybe that's just what happens when you, like, you give the Zelda guys an assignment, and they're like, all right, great, we're going to have fun with it. And then they put something out, and then you're like, do it again. And they're like, now we're mad.
I'm so excited for this.
Me too.
Though.
I'm
so excited.
Come on.
The Tokyo Game Show was also last week, and while we didn't get a ton of new Switch reveals, there was one thing announced of note. Konami announced remasters for the first two titles in the Suikoden series, Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, Gate Rune, and Dunan Unification Wars releases in 2023.
This is a series of games that I've never touched at all, but only hear like whispered in hushed tones.
Yeah, I feel the same exact way. This is the first time that the games will be available on a Nintendo platform, and Konami also kind of intimated that new Suikoden is on the way. So, kind of interesting to see. And we've had rumors of a new Silent Hill forever, and of something like Metal Gear in the works.
Metal Gear.
It feels like Konami's, after a brief, wandering through the wilderness, is turning back to console gaming.
I mean, we'll see about that, right? Because like they have been for the last couple years, they have been releasing like collections, right? And we've seen some kind of cool collections from them. We saw the Castlevania collection, we saw the Castlevania Advance collection. There's another, the Cowabunga collection that just came out, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's a great collection of classic Konami games. Here's another, they're being remastered or HD or whatever, but it's still a collection of old games.
Yeah, that's a good point. And there was that, I'm blanking on the name right now, but the indie game that was a sequel to like the Famicom game that never released.
I think that's Ayuden Chronicles.
No, it wasn't that. It was like a platformer.
The Getsu Fumaden.
Yes, yeah. But you're right. Of course, there have been rumors of a new Silent Hill. There have been rumors of something with Metal Gear, but we haven't seen we haven't seen a big budget, like Konami console title. You're right. It is mostly playing in that space. So
yeah,
interesting though.
Of like living in the nostalgia area. Yeah, but like I do wonder. Like us goes, all they got to do is really like team up with partners to put these things out, or to make them, which is also what they've been doing for the collections too, right? Like the Cowabunga collection is a digital Eclipse joint, right? Like they're just teaming up with people who do other stuff very well, and using their IP or their the games to put out these collections. So the Ayuden Chronicle was the game that's like a Suikoden like from some former developers of it. So like even if we do get a new Suikoden game, that like there will be this sort of spiritual successor as well as possibly an official sequel to that. We'll get a Harvest Moon Story of Seasons sort of scenario going on here.
Last week, Nintendo released update 1.1.1 for Splatoon 3.
Let's just enjoy that. 1.1.1 for Splatoon 3. That's so good.
Some notable changes include, for Splatfest, the rate of tricolor battle occurrence has been adjusted. From the defending team's perspective, they will trigger somewhat less frequently than before. So interesting that they're making this change before the first official Splatfest happened. They must have, from whatever data that they gathered from the Splatfest test, decided to make this change. Also interesting, they add a note that, quote, the changes to tricolor battle frequency should be considered temporary.
Whoa.
For now, there will be somewhat more instances of players selecting tricolor battle but being placed in a turf war battle instead. going forward, Splatfest matchmaking specifications will continue to be adjusted, and this issue will be rectified. We are planning to implement these adjustments with the new season beginning in December.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess just keeping us updated. Like, we realized there was some sort of problem. Here's what we're trying for now. We'll
continue to
to
balance
adjust,
it
yeah.
and continue to figure it out. Because they also say that the next patch will focus on balance adjustments and that they're monitoring match data and intend to make adjustments at the midpoint of the current season. But this release had a ton of connection error fixes.
Right.
So in the notes they say, we felt like this was urgent to get out now, and then these balances and all that kind of stuff are coming in the next update. So in my experience, I've personally ran into a couple of in-match disconnections, literally I think 2, and then more frequently in lobbies where it would be disconnected.
Yeah.
And then, you have to start the whole process again, which
connects you pretty quick, though.
It does, but I understand why it happens, but I think it is kind of annoying if you're waiting in a lobby, there's a connection error, and then you have to run back and go into the little room to try to connect again. It doesn't automatically
just push L, baby. Just push
L. Yeah. But I know that others, have been really affected with a lot of bad connections, so hopefully this will help address some of those issues.
I mean, if you're worried about bad connections, just play more Salmon Run, because there are fewer connections to worry about, right? It's just you and 3 other people.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of Splatoon 3 and of Salmon Run, Twitter user Oatmeal Dome has been data mining the game and has found references to new modes maybe coming to Salmon Run in the future.
Oh my god.
Reference to Pair, Underground, and Contest have been spotted.
Mark's doing finger quotes, which you can't see.
That's right. That's right. Pair, it's just for you, Patrick.
Yep.
Pair and Underground will apparently have their own pay grades and titles, and Underground is said to have higher quotas per wave than normal. But it's possible that one or more of these refer to the already announced Big Run event that Nintendo teased in the Splatoon 3 Direct. Details on that are still scarce, but in the Splatoon 3 Direct, Nintendo said that it was a once-in-a-while Salmon Run phenomenon in which salmonids invade Splatsville.
Which, does that mean we're going to be fighting in the world map?
Yeah, I am so excited for whatever
That's
this is
so cool.
and how it manifests itself.
Yeah.
So whenever this happens for the first time, I'm very excited. And like we talked about earlier, I just love that Salmon Run is a bigger part of Splatoon 3 and kind of not on equal footing with Turf War, which is still, I think, the main focus of the game, but is definitely getting its due.
I mean, honestly, between the way that Salmon Run is sort of expanded and the way that the single player is expanded, I may be recanting my Splatoon 2 is just more, or Splatoon 3 is just more Splatoon 2. It's a lot more, right? There's just so much here. Let's speculate a little bit about what pair means, or contest. What could these other modes mean?
Yeah.
Do you think pair is a pair of teams? Do you think pair is just
that could
2
be interesting?
players?
Yeah, it's PvE, but also PvP at the same time.
PvEVP. Could be that.
That could be that. Or maybe it's just you and one other person teaming up,
And then it being scaled to just 2 players.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, but I hope that these are truly new Salmon Run modes.
Yeah,
coming in the future.
Yeah, the more variety we have in Salmon Run, the better. It's just it's such a rich platform that just give me more experiences in it.
And finally, one game that didn't come up during last week's Nintendo Direct was Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp.
I can't remember. Did you and I talk about its absence at this thing or not?
I can't remember. I don't think we did.
I think
there was so much other stuff to talk about.
There was so much stuff to talk about. That's right. But I feel like I totally didn't clock the fact that it wasn't there. In the lead up to it, in the lead up to the Direct, that whole 24-hour period that we knew about it, I remember thinking, now's the time to finally pull the trigger and give us Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. But didn't happen.
Yeah, I wonder if first of all, okay, so the piece of news is that Axios reporter Steven Totillo asked Nintendo about the game since it didn't show up in the direct, and we haven't heard anything about it since the release date was canceled last March due to the Nintendo called it world events, but basically the war in Ukraine.
Right.
So Nintendo responded to Totillo saying, quote, "The release has been delayed. We will announce the new date once it has been determined." End quote. So
right, that's like the king of the non-answers, right? That's we have nothing to announce at this time.
But I do not think that when it is ready to release that it's going to have some kind. I think it'll be like kind of like a quiet.
It'll be a quiet release.
A Twitter, like Twitter announcement. It comes out. I don't think it'll be featured. I'd be surprised if it's featured in a direct again.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it is. Obviously an unfortunate thing to have to pause the release of a game for, and just in a bad situation overall. But yeah, like I don't know, I want to play this game. It was supposed to be out last December?
That was when it was originally announced for.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it got pushed to March, and now it's just indefinitely delayed. So yeah, I don't know when we'll ever. I believe that we will see, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp someday, but it's hard for me to imagine like when that will happen.
Yeah, I mean it certainly does. I don't know. I mean, we know Nintendo does just shelve things, right? Where they're just like, nope, not ready, time isn't right, whatever. But we saw Star Fox 2 eventually.
Right, yeah.
I think we're gonna have to wait like 17 years for this game? No.
But that would be funny if it ends up being on the Switch Classic Edition. It's like, oh yeah, in Advance Wars, 1+2 Reboot Camp is here.
Isn't that just a remake of the first two Advance Wars games? Oh yeah, I guess it is. All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like the episode, you should share it on Facebook or Twitter or any platform where you can share a thing. If you can share it in real life to a person that you know and love and who trusts you very much, tell them about this show. They'll appreciate it. We'll appreciate it. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell. And the show is at Nin Kart Society. There's also a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com. or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers, saying thank you for listening.